California Free Radio. We call it Fighting Behind the Iron Curtain, but at this point, I'm not sure what Newsom has the curtain made of. We are blasting out live everywhere, as we always are. Tonight, it's me and Scott Piotr. Kurt is in an undisclosed location. We've got a very special guest for you, and this is going to be, as always, a different kind of show. We're on @NetterMike on X, which you know if you're watching it. I want help sharing it to the communities. @TaxFighter7 on LinkedIn under my real name, on our Facebook groups, including my own name, Mike Netter, and also under Rebuild California, where there is a group for every county, which is especially important right now. And if that isn't enough for you, and you've got a bit of an attitude like you know I do, Outrage is our YouTube channel. We talk a lot about on the conservative side for my opening blast here, how we're a republic, not a democracy. And we kind of get that, those of us that are paying attention. But as many people know, we don't pay a lot of attention to civics in school anymore. Basically, what this means is everyone deserves representation. It's not mob rule. And that's really the best way to describe a republic, in my opinion, versus a democracy. What we're doing right now, and the focus of tonight's show, is a singular issue. And for everyone out there, there's a singular issue on a single ballot coming to you soon, October 7th. It's Proposition 50. And we're going to do a series on this over the next few weeks. And there's a great video that a friend of mine put up that they filmed at the California Republican Convention a week or two ago that explains a little about the redistricting. Everyone out there, the Dillon Law Group filed yet another lawsuit yesterday that's going to the Supreme Court on representation, which could affect in the future the entire way districts are drawn in every state, including California. Steve Hilton has asked for a stay this election, but let's assume it's not going to happen, which it probably won't. Here is really for everyone out there what we have in California. We have a system where one party has seized control of the state. And you could say they were voted in, but the reality is many of you out there, if not you watching the show, because I'm sure all our viewers, Scott, vote on every election, every basis, every election on every office, but many people don't. So the reality is many people don't know what's going on. And for everyone out there, before I even bring in Scott, this is what Gavin Newsom counts on. He is counting that in November 7th, no one will be paying attention. And you have to start paying attention. And California Free Radio, we're blasting all over to make sure that people do. I'm going to start off doing something that we talk about but don't do often. Help us by donating to Rebuild California. That's the political PAC that grew out of the movement to recall Gavin Newsom. We are blasting out digital campaigns to all the people around the state. And for all of you on my X feed, my LinkedIn feed, my Facebook groups, the speaking engagements, even at the KABC radio thing I did in front of about 300 people on Friday Live, I hear a lot of grumping and griping about the California Republican Party, and they are far from perfect, and that's not why we're here tonight. But here is really the big scoreboard, and I'm going to use a war analogy. Gavin Newsom and his bombers are coming in right now to seize what rights you have immediately away from you. And rather than decide about what's wrong with the army that you have at hand, about what kind of defense weapon you might want to design, you better get your posterior in gear, start to donate so we can use digital and get the word out. There's a lot going on also on the national scene, which tends to distract from the election coming up. And we're going to do a little bit of distraction tonight. And our guest coming in is not only a bit of a distraction, because I've been told he's rather good looking, but he's also pretty articulate when it comes to national politics, state politics. He's an author. He's been on Fox News more times probably than Robert Murdoch has. Kind of weird because Robert's never been on it, but you get my drift. Scott, give me an opening blast and let's bring in Tom Vaccaro.
Glad to. Hold on here a second. All right. Tom, welcome.
Hey guys,
Tom,
how
welcome
you
to
doing?
California Free Radio. Are you in witness protection, or not from where you are right now, but where are you on what's happening? Because right before we came on the air, James Comey got indicted, which much of our side seems to be screaming for. I'm going off track a little bit from California because that and the Epstein files are the red meat eaters, which I'm one of. We get all pumped up about it. But I'm going to start off by asking you to introduce yourself, and then I'm going to ask you the question: do you think that distracts from the mission at hand?
So I'm Tom Del Beccaro. I used to be the Republican Party chairman of California. Now I do radio and TV around the globe. Last year I did over 600 from the Middle East to Europe to New York. And now I'm finally on your show after all these years.
You
Who
finally
cares
made it,
about all
Tom. You're
those
finally
other?
somebody.
The big time, yes.
So look, this Comey thing is interesting. First of all, he is literally guilty of many things. He did purposefully leak things. He did lie under oath. He did entrap uh, administration officials. He attempted to entrap President Trump. And so General Flynn would have been there all along without a problem, except for Comey's entrapment. So he's a very bad guy. The statute of limitation 5 years was running, and so they had to make a decision. They presented it in front of a uh, an impaneled jury, and what they found was that yes, there's evidence there that he lied to Congress and obstructed their proceedings. There is a whole bunch of those guys, Clapper and the rest, right? Brennan, who did very bad things in office. And one of the things that President Trump promised to do was to indict people who committed real crimes. And if he hadn't, if this avenue isn't pursued, then the question is what well, why when they get back in power, why don't they just do it again? The left, of course, has always had no trouble with doing this, even when there was no facts to back it up. Russia, Russia, Russia. So I think it's a big deal. Comey is guilty. Whether or not a Virginia jury will find him guilty is a different story, but he definitely committed crimes.
Tom, you're on a number of news shows because every time I turn on my television, you're there, which is one reason I watch sports, full disclosure, so I don't see Del Picaro everywhere I go. Um, but it's interesting because California, where you've been in politics, I think originally you were working for Ronald Reagan way back when as a senior advisor.
Hiram Johnson. Yes, I've been
Yes,
around a
there you
couple
go,
of
way
ways.
back when. What strikes
He's like,
me is in California, because the media is so, how do we put it? I'm going to use the word corrupt and out of pocket. That certainly Newsom is buying a lot of ads, which I'm forced to watch during sporting events. But my question really is for Californians and really for much of the country, are these issues, which are important, are they taking away the conversation about why Prop 50 is so bad? And tell us about, I mean, most people know what Prop 50 is, but give us your take on why you think I'm going to assume it's so bad.
Well, government's at the center of our lives now. There's really no downtime to any particular area. So, what's going on in Florida or New York, the New York mayor's race, which could define the Democrat Party for years to come, or Brandon Johnson in Chicago, there's really no way to say, okay, we need to focus on one thing. Again, it's at this, sadly, it's at the center of our lives. And as I wrote in my book, above my thumb there, The Divided Era, the more government decides, the more it divides. And so we're in this period of time, which leads us to Gavin Newsom, who's running for president, even though he has the worst
He is?
record. How worse he'll declare in December of 2026. He has the worst record of any sitting governor, I think, in history. But as you pointed out or were alluding to, California has a one-party media, so they don't much talk about it to Californians, but the nation's aware of him. And so this is a pure political play. It's a temporary suspension, if you will, of the Constitution that allows there was an independent commission to lightly gerrymander the state because they do that. And now it would be put in the hands of these maps for the next 3 elections. So why is he doing this? Well, Gavin Newsom, a little unknown fact here, is number one in the polls now for the Democrat primary for president. If you're seen as a fighter among Democrats, even if you've accomplished nothing, you go up in the polls. And so he's doing this to prove that he's a fighter. But unlike Texas, this is actually a big problem for Californians. Texas isn't dead last in opportunity, dead last in affordability, worst in unemployment, on and on and on.
I mean,
Texas
California.
doesn't.
Right.
Texas doesn't. So when they redistrict now, there isn't this great harm that's going to be done to the state. Whereas California is dead last in all these things, and they want to make it worse. They want to really restrict the number of Republicans that exist in this state. And they're doing it in a ludicrous fashion. Just think about this. The district they drew, and all of this is designed to remove Republicans. It's not designed to represent the people. You have, believe it or not, if you look on this map, you have, so if you look at California, you see in the one on, I think it's the left of the screen, all the way to the top upper right. That is Modoc County. You go across it to the end, that's Del Norte, and you come down all the way to San Francisco. So Modoc and San Francisco would be in the same district. Now, why does that matter? Well, Modoc has 2 people per square mile. They are a complete ag area. Much of that area up there is ag. So why are they doing this? They're just drawing it to eliminate Republicans. It's got nothing to do with representing people. But if that's not bad enough, the real issue is for voters, do you on the ballot this November is, do you trust Gavin Newsom? Because Gavin Newsom says this is a one-time thing. Okay. If you're willing to believe that, as they proverbially say, I own a bridge going over the bay in San Francisco, and just for you, I'm willing to give you a discount, but only till Sunday.
So as person who's been, shall we say, involved with the inside infrastructure, I'm being very polite here, with the Republican Party and the various characters, many who I've been in the room with, but some like Monger I have not been in the room with. Why do you think our side, if you will, doesn't have a unified front? Because this, and you can agree or disagree with that statement, but the Politico and the press and much come out with it. We have all these groups doing a disparity of things, some putting in fairly big money, but is it basically are the Democrats doing a better job, or does our side simply doesn't have its expletive, deleted, beep, beep, beep together?
Well, there's a lack of center of gravity among Republicans in California. It's that simple. The Democrats don't have that particular problem because they have all the statewide offices and the unions on their side, so they tend to act in concert. We have no statewide offices. We are a super minority in the legislature, so that's a problem. And the state party is not in a strong position right now. On the other hand, there are complementary efforts. It is good that there are commercials from 2 different statewide groups, but my group, Californians for Election Fairness, has a new site that came out today It's electionfairness.com. And our push is to complement those other things, those other efforts, and to work on the ground to push out the vote. So that's electionfairness.com, of which I am the chairman. And the goal here is to reach all elements of voters. You made a very important comment early on. I find that hard to believe that I said that, but
Hold on
here I
one second.
am.
I'm go off camera and have a cardiac. I'll be back in a second.
It's the right of center voters in California don't realize the election date, and they don't realize ballots are about to drop. In fact, the fact that all these mail-in ballots are going out, what will awaken a fair amount of them that don't even know it. And our job is to contact those voters. So if you're interested in helping us with that, you can go to electionfairness.com and help us out.
We're going to roll that across our screen and I'll be putting up on my feed later. And it's interesting too, because I want to go down. I think Gavin is counting on a low turnout. Scott, I want to ask you, give me an over under number on what you think the turnout is going to be for this election. Let's get one from Tom. And I'd like to see
Percentage or numbers?
number. I want a number. They don't count vote. I'm so sick of hearing about percentages. Okay, you don't take percentage to the grocery store. You take a number. I've got a number in mind. Can you tell me what you think it's going to be? You're allegedly way smarter than me. And by the way, for those of you out there that watch me weekly, not much of a compliment.
I think you're going to be in the 3.5 to 4 million voter range. It's going to be a pretty low turnout.
Yeah, I think it's good. Is this the Price is Right? Do I win if I say whatever he said plus one? No, I think it actually. I think there's going to be
Attaboy.
a
You
big.
get an attaboy.
I think there's going to be a big push. I think it crosses the 10 million mark.
Whoa, I think that's large. I'm going with the over under of 5 million. So I'm going to be right in the middle. Now, debating about that figure for a second, and I'll tell you, this is a part of the conversation I really want to open up with you here, which is another reason for Tom's PAC. We're going to roll across the screen, electionfairness.com. For Rebuild California, where we're united with what Tom Baccaro does, by the way. It's important to understand that we have to get to these voters. But here's an interesting trivia question when you said 10 million. And Tom Baccaro, even though you're my guest, but it's my show, I may show you up. Do you know how many people show up for the gubernatorial election? Primary.
Gubernatorial.
Primary.
Not that many.
Primary.
Not that many. About 4.
7 million actually. That's
All right.
7 million. Were millions, and that's, by the way, the last 3 or 4 elections. So what's interesting is Gavin puts out all these ads, and this is a question I got for you as kind of a veteran of the space. He's really old. Is that my opinion, and I want to get your intake on this, is Gavin doesn't really give a damn what happens in this election. He discovered, by the way, for everybody who doesn't know, Tom Baccaro was an amazing partner in the recall. And I think we kind of taught Gavin there's no caps on donations, because we got 2 old white guys, I'm going to say it, Charles Munger and George Soros, going, we're throwing money in the poker game, 10 million, 20 million. I get emails from Gavin. And I'm trying to exactly figure out how each of these expletive deleteds, and I get a plead from Gavin every day, is really going to burn through 30 to 40 million on each side to have a turnout, I'll even say 5 million in a 6 or 8 week run. I mean, I get it. They're all buying TV ads. They're doing this, that, and the other. Do you think this is really just a scam for Gavin to stash what's left over for his alleged run for the White House?
Well, you can't use state money for federal elections. So this is just this is a campaign for him for president. And maybe my 10 million, you're right, is probably too high. But it is a very saturated message. Most elections, there's so many people running and people get, so overwhelmed. The chance that this goes higher than your 5 million is because because it's so saturated and the Democrats are so focused. And Republicans need to, regardless of whether I'm right or you're right, the Republicans need to understand, and independents who want this state to be balanced in its representation as much as possible, they need to understand how serious the Democrats are about this. They've got the message, they're getting the message, and they are very motivated in this state. So, and let me tell you how this matters. Kamala Harris is running around the country saying it's one of the closest elections in history. Most people don't know that Trump didn't get to 50% of the vote. He was in the mid 40s and she was in the mid 48s. He was in the mid 49s. She was in the mid 48s. So that's why she's saying it was a close election. It wasn't in the Electoral College because California provides so many votes to Democrats that it brings it close. And that's what Gavin's counting on now. So yes, my number's 10 is too high. That's a bit of scare tactic to get our voters out. But I expect the Democrats to come out. Remember, the usually in off-year elections, the party out of the White House is more motivated than the party in the White House. And that's what's sneaky scary here.
Let me go back to something that Gavin Newsom did, and you're absolutely correct in that you're not supposed to use the money that Gavin's raising allegedly for a federal election. But it's interesting, Tom. And Scott, I don't know if you know or not, but Tom Bakar and I are kind of responsible for putting Gavin Newsom in this position because his was it Save Democracy PAC was mainly started with the 20 some odd million that was left over from his recall election, which although he's not using it,
is a state issue. Running for president is federal, but
no,
nevertheless, this is
but he
all a
runs around the
commercial.
country, right? He runs around the country because he's not actually running. I'm not meaning to cut you off, brother, but he runs around pushing his persona. It doesn't say he's not really running for president yet. And interestingly enough, one of the biggest contributors, and I really want your input, you know, this is the Gavin Newsom for governor 2024. Huh? Oh, that's right. Oh, sorry, 2022. That's one of his biggest contributors to currently, yes, I get it's a state issue, but my point is he's able to push his persona up. Scott.
I was going to say, I understand that they're actually Newsom's running more ads for Prop 50 in New York than he is in California right now. I mean, he's trying to make this a national issue. He's using it as an excuse to raise money nationwide. He's hoping to walk out of this race with a Rolodex of donors that's, major donors across the entire country, and hoping to be in that first place position in running for president with the donors to match it. Although I did see something that I thought was kind of ironic that they thought that AOC is nipping at his heels and that AOC is likely to come out on top because she's the heir apparent of the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, and they're trying to use that as an explanation as to why Gavin Newsom seems to be running as hard as he can to the left.
Okay, but keep this in mind, and you're 100% right. Everything you said is 100% right. I did a piece today you can get at Fox or politicalvanguard.com on Kamala Harris's 5 career errors. And one of those was that when
Only
she was
5?
running it, only the 5 biggest.
Okay.
In 2020, when she was running, I was the first in the country to say that she would not even enter Iowa or any primaries, and she didn't. But she had started to. And the reason why she was not taken seriously back then is Gavin Newsom knows intimately. She was running 4th in California for the March primary. She was going to lose to Elizabeth Warren and others. Now, imagine if she had run away or was runaway popular in California and those 490 delegates she had wrapped up. They would have taken her very seriously in Iowa. But because she was so weak in her home state, They didn't take her seriously in Iowa. And for all the reasons you guys just said, he wants to lock up California. And the best way to do that is to be national so that no one gets in his way. And look, you got to give him credit. He has made himself the foil to Republicans nationwide over the last 2 years. He's the one, however poorly, who debated DeSantis. He's the one who attacks Trump in the national news all the time. He has done his job. He's horrible at governor, but putting himself in the limelight. And of course, he doesn't have Netter's good looks, but if he did, God knows where he'd go.
Interestingly enough, though, this is the part that I don't know that. First off, Gavin doesn't seem to grasp that he's not running against Trump. He's building this persona for the country. And this is another reason I wanted to have on tonight. We do have something called the Electoral College. We still have that, right? I didn't miss a memo today. Okay. So New York with AOC with an interview. You going to live? I don't want you dying
Yeah,
on the
I'm
show.
sorry.
We have a record,
I'm
by the
sorry.
way. No guest has ever died on the show yet.
He's always the first.
There's always a
But we
first
do want to
time.
keep it that way. Yes.
Yeah, we would like to keep it that way. We're not insured for that, I don't think. But maybe we are. We can check our clauses. But we have New York, AOC, we have California, we have all the political pundits going, it's going to be so close. And most of the nation goes, really? I mean, really? So in your book, for example, I want you to talk about a little of your book. I mean, we think we live in the California swamp, okay? And we get the California media every day. And I have friends all over the country, or safe houses as we call them. And they're like, we don't, who the hell in their right mind votes for expletive, deleted, beep, beep, beep? As you dive into national politics, is it really the media pumping this up, or do you really think if it's a Democrat or not, that a Kamala, if another reporter corrects me, there's going to be one more homicide in LA, like anybody would notice, or a Gavin Newsom, where anybody looks at the record, you go, seriously? Not the Democratic Party, but one of these two actual idiotic characters can really win a presidential election. They might win a nomination, but actually win an election. Give me your take on that.
Kamala, one of the worst candidates, probably the worst candidate since Dukakis, because we're so divided, got 48+% of the vote by hook or by crook. That's the tally. So the Democrats do not. I wrote a piece about where the Democrats are. You can get it at tomdell.com, and thanks for running that site below. You look at the numbers; they don't think that they are far off. Now they are far off for winning swing states, farther than they've been in a while. But they don't see it that way. They think a very weak candidate came. They held Trump under 50. That's actually significant. So for them, and again, they run up to score in New York and they run up to score in California. But what you're seeing is a dynamic where they are very determined. They think they're absolutely right. They're seldom right, but they're arrogant about this. And if you would have asked people 6 years ago whether the Labour Party would have a prime minister in England today, no one would have said that. And what happens is that the reason why Labour is there is because the governing party stopped governing. They were just existing. So if Republicans aren't successful, they just sort of meander and look. They were arguing 3 weeks ago about bloody earmarks. Let me tell you something. The 2030s are a very dangerous period in American history. These debt will have national debt probably in close to 50 trillion. We have Social Security and Medicare, probably 200 billion underwater each. And tough decisions are going to have to be made. The time for doing this was 20 years ago, but that's run out. So Republicans are going to have a very difficult time governing in the next 6 years because there's serious issues because of the malfeasance of both parties. So the death of the Democrat Party has been exaggerated. They are doing a fine job limiting themselves, but the future is guaranteed to no one in party politics, especially given how much money they can raise.
Which
If,
good,
do you
because I've
think
got
there's
a
going to
follow.
be,
Go
do you
ahead.
think there's going to be much of a Charlie Kirk impact on the race in 2026?
2026 for sure. Today on another program, I likened what's happening with Charlie Kirk to, if you remember, Nixon talked about the silent majority. And the Charlie Kirk effect is the silent morality. There is a huge percentage of Americans, and I've been saying this for decades, who want a level of normality for America. Yes, they care about the feelings and what's going on with people, but they want their world to be normal. It's okay for San Francisco to go crazy, but I'm in the Midwest and I don't want that. The liberal parties in history push too hard to the left, always. And so they lose elections, but they're okay with that because their real goal is to get everybody hooked on government. Oh, by the way, they've been successful at that. Government is now 37% of the economy, government spending. But the Charlie Kirk effect could last into the next election uh, because the brazenness and the callousness and the dangerousness of where the party of protest is what I call the Democrats these days. They don't get into office. They may change social consciousness, but they don't win the White House because we want more stability. So the silent morality could should significantly help Republicans in the next two elections. But at the end of the day, if wages aren't rising and jobs aren't there, you could get a Labor Party candidate like AOC.
And it'll be tough to see what happens, but Charlie Kirk and his memorial on Sunday, which was like 5 hours long, even though the legacy media didn't cover that. Um, what you saw were the two big things in Charlie's life: the political side and the religious side, the moral side. His dedication to Christ. What you've seen since Charlie Kirk's assassination, which has been kind of surprising to a lot of people, is that not only have you had the Gen X guys attend church in great numbers, that's the college age people now, right? But you've had the Gen Z and or I may be getting those two mixed up, Gen Z, and
One of those album members.
surprising, the millennials started to attend church also after Charlie Kirk's assassination in larger numbers than the Gen Z, Gen X group. So, in other words, it isn't the Charlie Kirk phenomena is no longer just relegated to the college campuses and the alums from the college campuses. You're starting to see it spread to the millennials. To me, have been that generation without a rudder. They grew up with us boomers as their parents and felt like they just don't have direction. That the direction has been kind of their parents' direction and not their own, and they've decided they just have dropped off and not really attended church much. And you're seeing that pick up with Charlie Kirk. So you may see a much longer than just the 2026 elections impact from Charlie Kirk. Just the fact that Turning Point USA has had like 64,000 requests for new chapters, shows kind of a sea change in the electorate, not just the politics as usual and playing the games between the Republicans and Democrats like we're kind of discussing now. So that's kind of an unknown factor.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Tom. I want to rotate
I
in
made
with
the case. Yeah, but real quick, I made the case that there has not been a realignment yet. One time voting differently does not make a realignment. there's opportunity for Republicans. They need to follow through with success with policies. So, like Reagan did over an 8-year period that drew people to a sort of permanence and created the Reagan Democrat was not created in the first 2 years. It was created in the last 2 years or the last 4 years. And that still needs to be solidified. Um, and this, look, the word revival is a good word in this case. They have revived these issues, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stay. I hope you're right. You could well be right that this lasts for 6 to 8 to 10 years as the left continues to spin out of control. But when you're in the middle of the storm, you can't necessarily know whether you're in the eye or you're free of the rain.
Let me spin this back to Prop 50, though, because it's interesting to me. I mean, I always say most people agree with Republicans because we're normal. I mean, it's like we don't have many. I mean, you go to the market.
Present company except, of course.
Yeah, present companies. I don't really see many people with purple hair shopping. Sorry, I get a few, but the reality is these raving people that I see protesting, I don't know where they go, but there aren't that many supermarkets in my area you'd think I run into. It's not the normal. But here's what I think is interesting in relation to Prop 50. And I've seen criticism of it by the press, which I actually think is legit. Trump, our side won because Donald Trump became the person, the entity pushing our values. We like to think that our values won. In my opinion, Donald Trump became the character that pushed them forward. There's always debate. I don't really care if he's the best character. That in the case of Prop 50, I guess my question is, I want to throw back at you, and I actually think this is legit criticism of our side. We have Newsom pushing this redistricting. The reality is it makes no sense. And us people that are smart in politics, you two and me excluded, right? We know about all the redistricting and the representation and all the things that happened last time and the Water Reclamation Act of 1936 in Kansas. And people go, hey, I just threw that in to see if you're paying attention. But I get this from so many people typing me on my feed every day. But in the meantime, Newsom is just screaming purple hair with his hair slicked back. And does our side have the proper person leading the movement for Prop 50? And I'm not a criticism of the people we have now, but when I talk about singularly uniting, who's our spokesperson? I know it's supposed to be Arnold, but he doesn't get out much these days. And certainly not going to be Charles Munger with the bow tie and the physics major. So give me some input on that.
Well, you raise a good point. No, you raise a good point. I said at the beginning, there isn't a center of gravity, and that is a problem. On the other hand, Newsom's a motivating factor. He's below 50%. So he motivates both sides. And then you throw in AOC and she motivates both sides, which is why I think the number of people that'll come out will be more than people think. It's not going to be 10 million. I was trying to be a little provocative.
He says it is now as a matter of video record. I would like to put this officially in front of the court that Tom Baccaro has hedged his bet. Duly noted.
But I take your criticism that we don't have that centralizing figure. But Newsom has such a bad reputation these days that their guy isn't exactly the best to push this forward, and because they patently know that it's as phony as the grease in his hair or whatever the hell he puts in there.
And frankly, even if he were to lose it in November, if we're successful preventing Prop 50 from passing, I really think that it doesn't impact his presidential race. He put the right foot forward. He tried to save the Democrat Party, and the voters didn't go along with him. But at least he's out there working and trying.
And definitely why he's doing it. And I agree, you can make that case with him. I wonder how many will think, well, he screwed up his state and he can't even deliver his own state. I don't, you know, we'll have time will tell which, you know, which of those arguments is right. In the short term, unquestionably, he's getting props for this. We'll have to see. Remember, in fact, the Democrat field for president is very weak. The
Yeah.
idea that Pete Buttigieg, who got 8,600 votes as a mayor and then ran for president, AOC, who used to be a bartender. I have nothing against bartenders, but that's the last important thing she did in her life. And Gavin Newsom, who's got a horrible record, and JB Pritzker. Are you kidding me? They have a very weak bench. So we'll have to see. There's no centralizing figure for the Democrats. They've been telling that for, you know, who's the leader of the party? I don't know.
Well, I want to go on record right now on this show before I get to the next subject and say, with the national debt, if J.B. Pritzker was to get elected president, we could not afford to feed him. Okay, so let's put that right now on record. If you've never seen a picture of him, look it up, but you have to see it on a big screen television. But going back
A
to the
very wide
subject
screen.
at hand, it's interesting, and before I let you go, Tom, and I want you to talk about your book a little bit here. Scott, you know, we talk about Christianity, but now we're talking about Charlie Kirk, and that's kind of my point. Kirk became, unfortunately, his untimely death became the focal point for a movement with Christianity, which has been around for quite a long time. Tom, we talk a lot about the Republicans, and I'm going to put you on the spot because you write books, you're a political pundit. I always say in all these conversations I hear every day, all the time, I'd like you, and this isn't good, bad, or indifferent. You don't even have to answer it. Boy, that's a lot of prelude to the question. But can you name 5 leading Republicans in California? I mean, because this is the problem we always have, right? A lot of these people are good friends of mine, but you say, who's going to run for this and who's going to run for that? And I'm 5 people. And you don't have to name them, but I want you to think about it. And maybe not to put you on the spot, but I think this is part of the problem we have in California. And for everyone out there, this is why we talk about having people step up every week. Tom Baccaro, Mike Netter, Scott Piatto, Kurt, we're not necessarily doing this to run for office. We're doing this because we care. And this is Charlie Kirk did this because he cares. He made a name in his lane, if you will, of Christianity. Trump started doing it because he gave a rip and went for president. But Tom, could you see where I'm going with this? The problem is it's really hard to name who the leading Republican, not in the current race, because people like to go, I got 14 more votes in the poll. But this is the problem I think we have back to California. You can agree or disagree with that.
No, California has done very poorly for years now. They have not provided a plausible, Republicans have not provided a plausible alternative to the Democrats. They've got, and for years, when they had more numbers in the legislature, they played get along. Minority parties don't pass majority parties by being nice. They provide a difference on something that matters, and they advertise it and push it dramatically. Republicans don't advertise what they do. Voters have no idea that there's an alternative. So, and then you compound that year after year, and people move out. Since the 90s, millions have moved out, millions. So yes, you're right. California is in a difficult position, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But you're right. There isn't a leading Republican.
So if you were to
Three.
pick 3 issues, because this is what I hear all the time, people give me input.
Three
3
issues?
things, 3 issues. I have mine in mind that I ran about all the time. But again, as you know, I was in a special class in school. So what 3 issues would you pick that you think Republicans should push? Because what we talk about, sorry, but for everybody out there, Tom, you've been to Republican conventions with me, and what we're arguing about, bylaw number 64.27, whether or not we should recognize people with green hats on the floor for more than 3.5 minutes, nobody gives a rodent's posterior about. So what are, would you say, the three issues that you think the Republicans ought to push as the minority party?
In California, the
Yeah,
answer is jobs, water, and crime.
fair enough.
Another thing is they don't brand. So what every assembly person running for assembly should run on the same jobs issue and the same crime issue, so that if someone's voting in Sacramento or San Diego, they or Modoc, they know what the party stands. You do the same with a crime bill, and then you let each assembly person run on an issue germane to their race. I tried to tell that when I was back in 2007 to 2013 or 2005, whatever it was. I tried to convince them of that, but
I was in high
California
school,
has
Tom. I barely remember it.
California has consultants who tell each candidate what to do, and in the process, that's very short-term thinking. The success of a party is in branding on an issue. I had a major candidate who spent a lot of money for governor call me up afterwards and say, say something on this, and I told that person, her, the same thing. She ran against the brand, but Republicans don't build brands. They have
No,
consultants
that
who tried to build individuals, lost races, and now those consultants are gone and gone to other places because there's not five Republicans as you describe it.
Have you
and
tried
thank you, by the
calling the
way.
current CRP chairman and advising her on these things? She
Um,
she starred
Scott,
in a she
I
starred
don't
in a
know. I don't know if you
commercial.
know how utterly insane that comment was, because that current chairman, obviously I'm tongue in cheek with you. The current chairman does not appreciate me. That's the nicest way I could put it.
No, and
Well,
Listen,
I'm going to we
I don't
can
think
be
it's
the
just
reason
politely here. Thank you for all the comments here. We're not out to beat up our own party, but the point is, and you make a good point when we talk about this. And for those of you out there, and I like that we have somebody with a doctorate giving us a compliment. I love a lot of things we see on the feed. But here's the reality of it: crime, water, and jobs. Those are three things which affect everybody in the state. When the party sits there and argues about what's on the platform, and for those of you out there, by the way, that doesn't mean the things that they stand on, literally, not metaphorically, right? People don't even know what the platform is and argue. There are things which it's insane that the minority party, as you call it, are what we argue about at these conventions, because I'm like, who the hell cares? You
the
wonder why
answer to
we.
the answer to that question is the low dollar donor who are vital. But that doesn't stop the party from doing. That's not the only thing a party should be concerned about. It needs to be concerned about these big issues and presenting an alternative. And California has 17 media markets, and it takes a lot of money. And you got to work hard at this. And you need a leader who stands up there and says, okay, I used to advocate this is the year of education, or this is the year of the small business owner, or we should have 7 water bills that affect the entire state and everybody runs on them and presents a challenge. In my speeches, I used to say that the Kardashians would support us because they have big properties and they have water concerns, and they've mentioned that. There's ways to do this. Texas became red. Wisconsin became red. Michigan became red. There's ways to do this, but
Florida.
California's
Yes.
been run by consultants instead of uh,
Leaders.
Newt Gingrich and people who understand the history of politics. And this is where we wound up. And this is me lamenting. You can make the argument that I didn't succeed, but then again, Charles Munger spent $800,000 to defeat me when I ran against Kamala Harris, and there you go. Which I was really upset about. I
Your
was
buddy
personally
Chuck?
offended. I was personally offended that he spent that amount against me because I thought I was worth $1 million. But what do I know?
I was actually rather shocked that Gavin Newsom spent 90 million against a little committee to defend his crown, because we are 6 people who virtually had no political experience. Tom, before I let you go, I'm going to let Scott talk a little bit after this, actually, because that's why I have a co-host allegedly. But I'm going to ask you a question. Crime, jobs, water. In the battle I'm at, you are at, that Scott is at right now against Prop 50, and I'm going to be super blunt for everybody out there, and you can tell anyone that some of the things that my party is running right now in these ads, people are going, huh? So I agree with you. Crime, jobs, water pretty much affect everybody, even if you're the criminal and you're for crime. How would you relate that to the Prop 50 message?
If the Republicans lose the House, all of those issues become worse in California. They're
Mhm.
going to continue to ignore water. They're going to try and fund high-speed rail. They're not, and you're going to have far left people in office dealing with crime or defunding the police. So Prop 50 is bad for California because what ails California, this would only make worse.
That is a perfect way to put it, which is one reason I wanted to have you on the show tonight, because I babble and you're actually very eloquent about that.
I thought it was because Scott was paying me extra to give you a bad time, but I
Well,
probably shouldn't have
that
said
too.
that.
Hang up on
And
Mike
by the
tonight.
way, if I ran into you in an elevator, which I don't plan into anytime soon, and we were stuck at, and you had to give me a 30-second pitch on your latest book. Let's assume we're going up 6 floors and the TV in the elevator is broken.
All right,
Which,
so here's the
anyway,
answer. I'm going to do 32 seconds.
go
People
for it.
wonder what's happening in the American culture today. So my book, this one, The Lessons of the American Civilization, it's a very short book. It's only about 200 something pages. I explain how civilizations come together, rise and fall, and I explain and then the rest of the book is the American story from the 1500s to 2024.
And we're going to put a picture of it up right there.
There you go.
Okay. Lessons of the American Civilization. Tom Baccaro, I'm going to go out on a limb right now and assume that the forward in the book is not written by Gavin Newsom.
Seems unlikely.
Yes. Okay. And how do people get this book? And now, by the way,
TomDell.com.
you can steal it, but if you don't want to steal it and actually want to pay for it, you go to TomDell.com. Scott, roll that on the screen for me if you could.
Sure.
TomDell.com and also visit Political Vanguard, which is my media site, and electionfairness.com, and let's defeat Prop 50. I appreciate you guys having me on. And Scott, thanks for watching him so closely all these years. It's necessary.
Keep a leash on him. Tom, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for
All
joining
right.
us. Have a great night. Let's keep up the fight. Let's do crime, water, and jobs. Okay? Scott, I find Tom very fascinating because he's really quite the political thinker. Give me your take on that.
Yeah, I know that he, in his tenure as the California Republican Party chair, the job that's hurting cats, right? You got all these people in the legislature that think they know best between them and their consultants, and who the heck is the chairman to tell them what to do? But he had success at least uniting us around a central theme, or focusing on certain issues, like he talks about right now with jobs, crime, and water. And our current chairperson is clueless, and she doesn't have the ability to raise money like the previous clueless chair. So it's even worse because now she's got no money to do anything besides pay her own salary. They're going to be starting to lay off people. If you wanted a sign that says yes on Prop 50, You can go to the CRP website, but you have to pay $30 for the sign, and then they'll ship it to you.
There's going to be shit. Excuse me, Tom. I mean, Scott. I'm right. We just got a complaint in from the FCC. Now that they're complaining about Jimmy Kimmel, thank you. But could asked if we could please take the Gavin Newsom picture down. So, thank you for doing that. Apparently, a picture of Gavin Newsom for more than 2 minutes violates some kind of rule on any kind of broadcast, which I do understand. So
you could see the background, the flag that I put in the background is
Yes,
a
yes,
picture of
flag-
Trump pushing against the California bear. And people have to realize, I mean, Gavin Newsom's out there pushing the Democrat flag. He's trying to redistrict things so that instead of having 9 Republicans representing out of 51 congressional delegates from California, we're going to go down to 3. And in fact, the map that I had up there previously, just so that everybody can kind of orient themselves, the one on the top left shows the competitive districts with today's districts. The one in the middle is today's districts, and the one on the right is the proposed districts. And the one on the left, you can see there are actually some current Dem districts that are considered competitive that Republicans can take that over. And likewise, there are Republican districts there that Dems could win. I mean, in an ideal world, if you didn't have any partisanship in drawing the lines, you would keep communities together. You wouldn't go reaching out to grab certain political constituencies in faraway places. And every single one of the 51 districts in California would all be competitive. Now, this state is so biased and so lopsided, that's not going to happen. The fact that they were able to come up with, I think the number on this illustration is like about 12 districts that are competitive out of the 51 is a miracle in and of itself. If Prop 50 passes, we're likely to have 3 rock hard Republican districts, and the rest will be solid Dem districts. There won't be a competitive district in the bunch. And you can see in the map in the upper right hand corner how many of those districts are shaped very, very unusually. Like Tom was pointing out, you have Norte County, Mono County in the upper right-hand corner of the state, and they have to wrap that district all the way down to the northern Bay Area to pick up some Democrats so that they can overcome the Republicans in that district so that it can be a Dem district. So what we have is supposedly Newsom's response to Texas. Let's be clear. What's going on in Texas is I don't want to filibuster, but give me 30 seconds.
No. The reason I'm stopping you, hold on, I'm going to let you go in 1 second. That is Newsom's hyperbole in the press. But for people, you got one issue. I don't mean to cut you off, brother, but that Texas thing was taken out of the initiative. It's not in there anymore. So that is Newsom talking. Read the fine print. Back to you.
Yeah, they had I don't know if you call it a killer pill in the initiative or in the language originally, that if for some reason Texas did not go ahead with it, they would take it off the ballot. And he's like, scrap that, we're taking it to the ballot anyway. But Texas is responding. They drew their districts. The Supreme Court went all the way up to the Supreme Court. They decided that Texas drew their districts with race in mind. So they drew racially biased districts. In fact, they were racially biased in favor of what they call Black and brown communities. And so they are being forced by court edict to redraw their districts. Trump's encouraged them to get it done in time for the 2026 elections. They didn't have a time frame that they had to redo it by, but they're redoing it in response to the Supreme Court's direction of finding their original districts unconstitutional. California, they just want to screw Republicans, and Newsom's just doing this using Texas as an excuse to put it on the ballot and do this thing. And they had to violate 3 or 4 different state statutes and constitutional edicts in order to put it on the ballot. And those are being challenged in court, and they're yet to be decided. The court is somewhat kick those out. Some of them they've kicked down the line and say, "Oh, you don't know if it passes, we'll deal with it then." But if it doesn't pass, then we don't even have to deal with it. So you got a very biased Democrat Supreme Court in the state of California. Steve Hilton for governor is challenging it in federal court. He may gain more traction on that. But what you have is an extremely biased. I mean, 40% of the people in California voted for Trump in 2024. Yet we only have 17% of the congressional districts represented by Republicans. And he wants to take that down to like 7%. So this isn't fair by any stretch of the imagination. This is a power grab, and it's going to have an impact nationally. So even if you're not in California behind the blue curtain here, like we are, if you're in New Jersey, you need to understand that this is going to impact you too, because if 5 seats flip in the Congress from Republican to Democrat, and all of a sudden you've got a Hakeem Jeffries that's the chair, a Speaker of the House, we're all screwed, and we don't have any more clout in getting the Trump initiative covered, passed, or implemented in any form or fashion after the 2026 elections. Now, I happen to feel that the Charlie Kirk effect is going to impact, and that the Republicans will pick up seats, but we don't need to lose 5 off the bat because California is cheating. And I think that the voters are going to turn him back. I mean, we talk about how many voters are going to turn out, right? You had 7 million people vote in a typical primary gubernatorial election. We had 10 million, almost 11 people vote in the 2018, 2022 general elections for governor. And in the recall, surprisingly, we had about 12.8 million. But this is one of these sleeper deals. There's no gubernatorial race. There's no Trump versus Newsom, although he's trying to paint it that way. This isn't a recall of Trump versus Newsom. This is some esoteric thing of redrawing it and taking it away from an independent commission to letting the legislators go. If you guys recall, when this was implemented, when did we get it, Mike? 2008. We had
We did two rounds of it in 2008 and I think 2010 or 15. Well, by the way, the Democrats put up a lot of money, but keep going because I want to tell somebody else some news which broke yesterday, that the reason I'm going to repost, as we call it, versus retweeting in a couple seconds, that is actually really, really big. And I talked to one of the lead attorneys on today, but go ahead. Keep going.
So back in 2008, and I think it ultimately got implemented in 2012.
There were 2 rounds of it. We did the legislature, and then we did Congress.
And right, and we did the constitutional amendments both times. So we have an independent commission, theoretically an independent commission, but as Tom Del Caro pointed out, it's not really that independent, and the existing map is pretty biased in favor of Democrats also, but it's not nearly as biased as what Newsom wants to make it. And it's the old theory of, and this is kind of what we campaigned on back then, was, do you want the politicians picking their own voters, or do you want the voters to pick the politicians? Obviously, the answer is we, the voters, should be picking the politicians. The politicians shouldn't be picking their voters. And if we vote yes on Prop 50, we're going back to letting politicians pick their voters. And it's just wrong. It's not representative government. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not representative in any form or fashion. Anyway, that's my rant.
And as I'm pushing the button on the post right now, I put this up last night. It also may be highly illegal. And again, for those of you out there, understand it's what we talked about with Tom tonight. It's the person, Newsom, who acts like he's running against Trump, and those of us who are in the weeds. But here's an in the weeds thing for you. And I talked to one of the lead attorneys on this today. The Dillon Law Group yesterday, and you saw the news coverage on it, filed a federal lawsuit. Although it's in Louisiana, what does that have to do in New Orleans with us in California? One of the main complaints, if you will, was the California Policy Institute, etc., and the Lincoln Club. How states are violating, including Texas, this concept of representation under the 14th and 15th Amendment. Now, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear this case October 15th. This won't stop the election going forward, but it's meant pretty big case, and there's another one to be filed. And again, I'm not talking about coming up soon. These cases may actually overturn whatever we vote on Prop 50 because we have to have proper representation. Whether you're black, Hispanic, old white guy, which Scott and I proudly represent the old white guys, okay, the older people who tend to vote the most, you have to have proper representation. And the maps that you see behind Scott don't give people proper representation. It is probably true that the independent commissions, there's 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 5 independents, not wink wink. Probably, the representation probably isn't entirely proper there either. Gerrymander has been going on since the beginning of time, and Scott's absolutely correct. Please do not record or repeat that at home.
Say it again.
That, they've drawn these maps, they gerrymandering's going on, blah, 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 but it doesn't mean that they're going to hold water. It really doesn't. And that's, by the way, in Texas, Louisiana, California. We need to make sure people are properly represented. I saw some of the comments earlier tonight. Yeah, in Folsom and these other areas, these maps are ridiculous. They don't properly represent the people. Forget Democrat or Republican for a second. I would like my congressman where I live to at least have a vague idea what city that I live in and not be headquartered in a city that is further away than a plane ticket on Alaska Airlines takes me to.
You bring up a really good point on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, this decision has the potential of affecting how districts are drawn in every state, not just
Correct.
California and Texas.
Correct.
I mean, it may be that, like you say, based on the 14th and 15th Amendment, that you have fairness, one man, one vote, and that you have fair representation. They may put severe restrictions on what you can do and what you can't do when it comes to drawing districts. I
Yep.
mean, I'm sorry, I don't think a guy that lives in Northern California, because they've got some long district. I mean, you look at this one on the coast here, it goes all the way up. You can't see my cursor. All the way up to San Francisco, goes all the way down past the Central Coast. I mean, if you live down in San Luis Obispo, which is nearly where that goes, do you think that anybody in San Francisco is really going to understand anything that's going on in San Luis Obispo? Hell no. There's no way that they're going to know. They're going to do what they want to do. I mean, it goes down to the basics. California's got other problems with union control and everything else, but the fact is that it should be representative government, and we don't have representative government. We've got government that's been chosen by people with money who are choosing who their voters are so that they can get the maximum number of people that they can get elected. It's all about power, and how they get there, they don't care. They don't care whether it's right. They might pretend to make it legal, but the reality of it is it's not right. It's not fair. And people are tired of that. You saw that happen with Charlie Kirk. People are coming out of the woodwork going, we're tired of that.
This is why the architects of our Constitution, and by the way, the architects of our Constitution were ordinary people. We tend to think of them as, amazing figures, which they were. But got to remember, these are ordinary people. Read about John Adams, Jefferson, Washington, who, like we ask you every week, stood up and just did something, caught the right wave in history. But these ordinary people, in their political brilliance, which can be you too, by the way, drafted a document that said, we're a republic and we need to have representation by state in the Senate, by this thing that we call Congress. Look, I hate to break it to you. When there is a murder on the California side of the Oregon border, I'm not that concerned with it because I live in Southern California. And when there's smash and grabs in Southern California, my friends on the California side in Lake Tahoe are like, yeah, sorry about that, but we don't live there. To the point that Scott's saying, okay, you have to have people within your community. And this is how little pockets of bad things start to happen because the people that represent the communities are getting their money from somebody else outside of the community. Can you say George Soros? I'm really confused why George Soros, I'm not, but I'm being facetious here, puts money into California races. He doesn't live here. Okay. He's probably hardly ever been here. And considering his age, probably the odds of him actually being here ever again are rather remote, but he puts money in because it puts forth an ideology that helps his side. Scott, believe it or not, and I doubt we're going to get to too many local stories tonight. Not many, there's a lot of state bills sitting on Gavin's desk, but let's get ready to wind this up because my singular focus right now is to defeat Prop 50, help save Prop 13, which is in Netter News this morning, and we're scrolling across the screen. You're going to see it on my feed every day. Scott, give me a couple other things that you think deserve a little bit of our time tonight.
Yeah. This James Comey thing, this indictment, I know it's not directly California. Of course, you've got the liberals and the Democrats saying, oh, no, it's payback. It's payback. Of course, the first question you ask is, payback for what? I thought you guys didn't cheat and didn't use the system against us. No, if it's payback, then they're acknowledging they cheated and used the system against us. Now, I do not advocate using the system against us or against anybody. I think that you should not have the Justice Department, for instance, or the FBI be politicized like the Democrats did under James Comey. James Comey is guilty of the whole Russia Gate, the whole Russian collusion hoax that pretty much made Trump's first term ineffective. He's still got a lot accomplished, but it really gutted that administration's ability to do what he wanted to do. James Comey should be locked up in jail for what he did. This isn't payback. This is getting somebody who used the system improperly and illegally, and they're going to pay the price for it. And if we don't pursue him to the fullest extent of the law, the next James Comey that comes up is not going to be afraid of using the system against whoever they want to next time. We need to make sure that the people who violated our trust pay the penalty so that the next guy thinks twice before he violates our trust. And this is an important deal. And I hope there's a lot more besides him.
And I think this also shows when we rotate back to California, Scott, many of these politicians that are running out of California as we draw to a close here, who run California, running out of California, they violated our trust and we don't find out about it. Can you say Kamala Harris and many of these people even running for governor right now until they're out of office because we're not paying attention. Scott, give me a wrap. I'll do the
Adam
closing.
Schiffer-Reins is on that list too. He was part of the Russian collusion.
I'm sorry. The list is so long, we could just do a show of reciting names. Okay, and maybe
so he's a couple of the big guys on the target. But yes, I hope that justice prevails. We need to have justice back in our justice system. And Prop 50 is unjust, and you need to vote no because it's unjust. And the ballots can be mailed to you on October 6th. That's a week from Monday. So you need to get that ballot and immediately vote no and put it back in the mail or take it to the registrar of voters.
And you need to help us tell people. Everyone out there, and I say this every week, you're a political advocate. Digital advocacy works. You're watching, many of you, this show on social media. That's what California Free Radio is all about. And again, I won't tell you the number of viewers we get, but it's a lot. It's more than many episodes of CNN, C-SPAN, MSN, and the rest of that alphabet soup that
Jimmy
you don't pay
Kimmel,
attention
more than Jimmy
to.
Kimmel.
There you go. Netter News, Rebuild California. We're collecting money right now for digital advocacy. And if you think that's not powerful, and I realize that people want signs cost money, they take a while to distribute. We're on a short run here. And by the way, you don't see people coming to your door right now, Gavin Newsom, asking to sell you a sign. He's emailing and texting you every day. And that's what we need to do on our side. And we need a few bucks to do it. I'm going to ask you tonight, send even $5 to Rebuild California, send it to Tom's New Pack. I don't really give a damn where you send it. Well, I do. I prefer you send it to us at Rebuild California. But do something. And if you don't want to spend money, great. Start taking our show, reposting it. Start doing something. Because you can do something even if you don't want to get out there and for whatever
Now remember,
reason.
I am Charlie Kirk. Go out there and tell a friend. In fact, tell 100 friends.
Small people make a difference. Remember, the people that started and built our republic were just ordinary people that felt the need to rise up. Scott, I got a question for everybody tonight. When exactly, Californians, how much are you going to take? What is your Boston Tea Party, your precipitating moment when you are going to rise up and do something? And you can do it without, right now, digitally, you can do something. So for everyone, it's your state. If you don't understand that, Prop 50 is the ultimate New York finger because Gavin Newsom thinks you don't care. Let's prove him wrong. We got about 6 weeks to do it. He's got a lot more money, but I tell you what, the people of California, get out there and do something. Rise up. And I don't mean go out in the streets and yell. Rise up the way that we're telling you. Go take this show, redo something every week, every day. Just tell 10 people to tell 10 more people and get them out there to vote and vote no. It's no, Gavin. It's no on 50, and it's your job. It's your damn state, and it's up to you to keep it. God bless you. Good night. We'll be back next week with the chairman of the Orange County Republican Party. We'll see you next week.
Hey, there's California Free Radio behind the blue curtain, and we're here because we think California is salvageable.